The night it detonated, the bar smelled like lemon cleaner and old IPA, and Adam was still laughing at a story about a forklift. I had my glass halfway to my mouth when the coworker I had been silently praying would be stuck in traffic walked through the door, spotted us, and smiled with the kind of controlled surprise that means, "I know you, and this is going to be interesting." "Riley," he said, like we were meeting for the first time. "Hey, Zach," I said, like we were meeting for the second time and only vaguely remembered why. He shook Adam's hand in that half-hug half-handshake men do when they work together, but also share memes. "You're the legend from facilities who rewired the whole mezzanine in one night," Adam said, grinning. He was in his element. Warm, proud, introducing me around like I was something he'd made with his hands. I smiled at the way Adam said my name whenever he introduced me. Softer, like a secret. My stomach did a polite flip that had nothing to do with the margarita. Zach ordered a beer and took the seat across from us. His eyes flicked to mine for the briefest of moments, a flicker of heat and history, then back to Adam. He was good at being casual. It's one of the reasons that night in March had felt like throwing a match into a bowl of gasoline and walking away without getting caught. Adam was mid-story about a defective conveyor belt and a runaway pallet when Zach said, "I've met your girlfriend before, I think." My hand tightened on the sweating glass. "We bumped into each other at Dory's a while back," I said. My voice worked. My lungs felt like they were switching to a backup generator. Zach smiled neutral. "Yeah, a while." Adam looked between us, curiosity without suspicion. "Small city," he said easily, and clinked his glass to mine like the universe had done him a favor. If the night had ended there, it would have been fine. But happy hours are designed to punish people who rely on coincidence. People filter in. Stories stack. Somebody suggests the back patio. Somebody else orders shots. The floor tilts. Half an hour later, Adam went to the bar to grab fries, and Zach caged me with his eyes over the rim of his glass. "You didn't tell him," he said quietly, not cruel. "I told him we'd met," I said. "And we have." Among other things. Zach looked down, rolled the beer bottle between his palms, then nodded toward Adam's back. "He's a good guy." "I know," I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. He took a breath. "I'm not going to say anything. It's not my style. But you can't expect me to pretend I don't recognize you if he asks me directly." "I'm not asking you to lie," I said, though I was indirectly. "I'm asking you to not volunteer." Zach's jaw worked like he was chewing a decision. "I won't be the reason he finds out," he said. "But you should be." Adam returned with ketchup and fries like a peace treaty. "So how do you two know each other?" he asked, easy unaware. "You can't make this stuff up, not the timing of it, not the way the universe loves a straight line." "We ran into each other at Dory's," I said again too quickly. "March. March," Zach echoed. Then he did the kindest, worst thing he could have done. He changed the subject. "Hey, are you still training for that 10K? Adam grinned and launched into a rundown about the new route, and the guy from purchasing who swears by toe socks. Zach nodded, listened, threw in a joke. I chewed a fry and felt the oil turn to lead in my throat. I could have told the truth later that night, when we were brushing our teeth in my tiny bathroom and Adam was humming, toothpaste foaming at the corner of his mouth, content in the way people are when the world makes sense. I could have said, "I need to tell you something weird and not terrible," and I should have said it sooner. Instead I swallowed it like a pill that would somehow dissolve and fix me from the inside. What I had told Adam when we started dating in May was this. I want to take things slow. I said it on our third date, hands wrapped around a paper cup of tea like a prop. I told him he was special to me in a way that made me want to wait, because I didn't want to mess it up. I framed it like a principle that would make us stronger. The truth inside the truth was uglier and simpler. I wanted control. After a string of situationships, where I slept with men quickly and we fizzled quicker, I had decided the fix was to be the woman who waits. The woman with standards. The woman who wasn't going to be used. Adam. Steady, funny, a little nerdy in the way that means he remembers your brother's job title and your favorite podcast. Said, of course, without flinching. He didn't ask when. He didn't make a face or a joke or keep a tally. He simply recalibrated to my pace like it was the obvious thing to do. He kissed my forehead in my doorway and went home like a man who knows restraint isn't a punishment when the person you want is on the other side. We built something gentle. Thursday dinners. Sunday hikes. A spreadsheet he made for our summer road trip that I made fun of, and then printed because it was perfect. He cooked. I made dessert. He sent me photos of poorly lit sunsets from the roof at his job. I sent him videos of my dog snoring with her tongue out. Every time we got close enough to take the next step, I would murmur, "Not yet," and he would take a breath and say, "Okay." And each time he did, the little tyrant in my head collected the victory like a bead. Here's the part where the internet would like a villain. I can be one. In March. 2 months before I met Adam at my friend Alana's game night. I met Zach at Dory's. He was funny in the shameless way people are when they know they're attractive and not looking for a promotion. We had 2 drinks and one conversation that made me feel like I was cleverer than I am, and then we went back to my place. It was fast and forgettable, the kind of night that looks good in a story if you don't have to wake up for work. He left with the right amount of politeness, texted me twice over the next week, and when I didn't reply, didn't push. He was the kind of man my friends would call fun, and my mother would call temporary. I didn't know he worked with Adam. I didn't know Adam yet. It was just one more night stacked on a pile that had begun to smell like smoke. When I realized on our 5th date that the Zach and Adam story about a warehouse prank was that Zach, I nearly choked on my water. "What?" he asked, concern creasing his brow. "Wrong pipe. Just swallowed wrong," I said, and he laughed and squeezed my hand. I should have told him then. It would have been awkward and fixable. Instead I did what cowards do. I told myself it was ancient history and I told him he was special, and I told us both we were the good guys. 2 weeks after the happy hour, Adam invited me to his company's summer softball game. "I thought you could finally meet everyone not at a bar," he said, smiling. "We'll grill. It's very wholesome." He grilled. He was wholesome. He wore a t-shirt so soft it looked like he'd loved it in a past life. I brought pasta salad like a person auditioning for a community. Zach showed up late with a bag of ice and a woman with copper hair, who looked like she'd never lost a hair tie in her life. He introduced her as Mia. She was lovely. Of course she was lovely. She had the self-possession of someone who always sleeps 8 hours, and she smiled at me like we were 2 women on the same team. When the game started, Adam pitched and Zach played shortstop. They were good together. Comfortable in that wordless, boyhood way. In the 3rd inning, Adam threw a curveball, Zach fielded it lazily, and the guy on second advanced with a grin. Adam laughed and yelled, "Soft hands, Z." Zach flipped him the bird, affectionately, and Mia laughed. I laughed too, because it was funny and because my body didn't know what else to do. After, we lined up at the grill. Mia and I ended up next to each other, women adjacent to sports. She gestured at Adam with her diet soda. "He's sweet," she said. "Real steady. Zach says he's the guy you want when the forklift won't start and your boss is in a mood." "He is," I said, and something in me twisted with pride and dread. Mia popped the tab. "I like your dress," she said. "Thrifted." "Yeah," I said, smiling. "How'd you?" "The buttons," she said. Thrift stores are obsessed with buttons. She was easy to like, which would have been a relief if I were a better person. Instead, I did mental calculus. If I said nothing, I could pretend this was a sitcom with a friendly ensemble cast. If I said something, I could watch my little control fortress crumble in front of the grill. I carried plates back to our blanket and reminded myself that lying by omission is still lying, even if nobody gets sued. Near the end of the night, after the sun had given up and the mosquitoes took the field, Adam left our blanket to help load coolers into trunks. I watched him throw in bags of aluminum pans, 6-packs with 3 missing bottles, a giant bag of deflated balloons, and the cart with the propane tank. He does the work nobody wants to do like he was born for it. It's appealing, that competence. It makes you want to build a life on it. Zach walked over, hands in pockets. "You're good at pretending your life is compartmentalized," he said quietly, not unkind. I stared straight ahead at a patch of grass where someone had spilled a beer. "I'm going to tell him," I said. "When?" he asked. "Soon," I said, and even I knew I sounded like a kid promising to clean her room. He looked over at Adam, who was closing the trunk, then back at me. "Soon is how people lie to themselves without admitting it." "I didn't know you worked with him," I said, defensive and lame. "I know," he said. "That part's not on you. The rest is." Adam came back, flopped down next to me, and put his head in my lap like a man who has successfully grilled for a small army. "We did good," he said, eyes closed. Z only embarrassed himself twice. A team record. I threaded my fingers through his hair and said, "We did," and swallowed the truth like glass. The universe is nothing if not impatient. 2 days later, Adam texted, "Come over after work? I make risotto when I'm avoiding a budget meeting." I went, because I always went. He made risotto, stirred with that slow patience that makes a person feel chosen, and poured me a glass of wine I didn't deserve. After dinner, we curled up on the couch. This is the part where a different story would cue the music and fade to black. Instead, we got the opposite. My sister ran into Mia at the farmer's market, Adam said, idly tracing a line on my shin. We got to talking about the game. She said Mia mentioned she knew you from Dory's. Oh, I said, casual as a cat falling off a counter, and pretending it meant to. She said you and Zach dated, he said. He said it like a question because he's kind and because he trusts me. I sat up so fast the wine sloshed. We didn't date, I said. Met. Once. Before you and I met. The truth sliced thin to fit an easier mouth. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Why didn't you tell me? I was going to, I said, which was a lie wrapped in panic. I didn't know how to say it without making it weird. And then time passed and it felt more weird. He nodded, slow, a man acknowledging that gravity exists. Okay, he said. We can deal with weird. Relief bloomed like a reckless flower. Thank you, I said too quickly. It was nothing, Adam. It was months before we even met. It was just... Wait, he said gently, holding up a hand. This is the part I'm struggling with. His voice stayed calm, which made it worse. You told me you wanted to wait because I'm special. You asked me to be patient because we were building something. I was happy to. He shifted, sat facing me, elbows on his knees like he was fixing a hard thing with his hands. But you had already slept with a guy I work with. No judgment on that, just the fact. And then when you realized it, you decided I didn't need to know. I didn't want to ruin this, I said, tears already lighting up behind my eyes like a defective string of Christmas lights. Every time I thought about telling you, I pictured this exact moment. And every time you didn't tell me, you made this moment heavier, he said, not unkind. I'm sorry, I said, because the word is a coin I keep in my mouth too often. It didn't mean anything. He exhaled, the tiny collapse of a man who knows that sentence is an alarm dressed as a pillow. It means something to me, he said. Not the sex. The story you told me about the sex. We were quiet for a long time. The neighbor's TV bled through the wall with a laugh track for a show I used to love. The risotto pan soaked in the sink. Somewhere, somebody's dog barked like it had just discovered existentialism. He broke the silence first. Do you know what it felt like the last few months? He asked. Like I was torturing you? I said, trying to turn this into a bit, so I wouldn't have to hold it. He didn't smile. Like I was auditioning, he said. Like I was being measured. Like you were keeping score in a game I didn't know I was playing. And I played anyway, because I wanted you. He ran a hand over his face. I would have waited anyway, Riley. If you'd said, I like to take my time, I would have said, okay. I would have laughed if you'd said, by the way, weird coincidence, I hooked up with Zach once before I met you, just FYI, let's avoid group hot tub situations. But you turned your boundary into a virtue and my patience into proof. I wanted to be someone who waited. I said, pitiful. You could have been, he said. You made me into the test instead. I started to cry properly then, the ugly kind, hiccuping on the edge of apology and explanation. I'm sorry, I said again, because I am not creative in crisis. I was scared. I've been in things where I moved fast and got hurt, and I told myself if I slowed down, the person would stay, that it would control it, he said softly. I get it. I didn't know you worked with him, I said, desperate to keep at least one piece of absolution. I didn't meet you and think, ah yes, a man whose coworker I've slept with. Perfect. I know, he said. That part isn't the wound. The wound is me learning about it from my sister, who learned it from Mia, instead of hearing it from the person who tells me I'm special. I didn't want you to look at me differently, I whispered. He was quiet for a long time. I do, he said finally. Not cruel. Just accurate. Do you want to break up? I asked, feeling like a person asking a paramedic if they should keep holding the tourniquet. He stared at the wall over my shoulder like it might write instructions. I don't want to be with someone who makes me prove I deserve what they didn't demand from a stranger, he said at last. I don't want to be with someone who confuses control with care. I don't want to be with someone who puts me in a triangle with a coworker, and then looks at me like I'm being dramatic for calling it a triangle. I reached for him, a reflex older than every story I've told myself about being the kind of woman who doesn't beg. He recoiled half an inch and then stilled, not because he was afraid of me, but because he didn't want my gesture to be a note he had to answer. I'm going to go to my sister's, he said, standing. Not because I'm punishing you. Because I don't want to be here and pretend we're fine. We're not. I'll text you later to plan picking up my stuff. I don't want a scene at work with Zach, and I am not going to make one. I also won't lie if somebody asks me point blank. Okay, I said, because that was the only word left that wouldn't embarrass me more. He put his sneakers on slowly, as if he were teaching himself dignity in front of me, step by step. At the door he turned. For what it's worth, he said, and his voice broke just once like a plate hairline cracked by heat. You were special. That's the part that hurts. After he left, I did what I do when my life feels like an exposed wire. I cleaned. I scrubbed my countertops like that could make me into someone whose boundaries aren't weapons. I sat on the floor with my dog asleep across my feet and made a list titled, If I Had Told the Truth. It had stupid items like no happy hour, and we avoid softball, and he makes the same risotto but without dread. It made me laugh, which felt obscene. I did not text Zach. He texted me the next day. I didn't tell anyone anything. Mia asked what the vibe was, and I told her the truth. I hope you're okay. I left it on read because adults are supposed to be good at nothing and I wanted practice. Adam didn't force a workplace melodrama. He asked quietly for a shift change that kept him out of Zach's daily orbit. When his manager asked why, he said he was trying to untangle personal and work life, and the manager, a man who's been on this planet long enough to know mess when he sees it, nodded and made it happen. Adam did not bring me up at happy hour. He did not stand in the break room and tell the story the way I would have. Hands moving, voice pitched to get the right reaction. He told two people who needed to know because it would affect schedules and invites. He went back to being the reliable guy who makes the forklift start and the budget fit, and the grill work. That's how he wins, and it's a quiet slam dunk I am only now able to admire. I tried to fix it with a grand gesture, because the part of me that should have aged out of teen movies refused to. I wrote him a letter, longhand, in which I did not defend myself. I apologized for the timing, the half-truths, the control disguised as principle. I told him I had wanted to be the version of myself that waits, and that I had used him to prove I was. I told him I understood if he couldn't get back what I took from him. I put it in his mailbox like a teenager. He texted back the next day. Thank you for the letter. I believe you're sorry. I'm still done. Then, because he can't help but be decent even when he has every reason not to. Please stop beating yourself up. It doesn't help either of us. I wished he had yelled. Yelling would have given me a script. His kindness gave me no handholds. For weeks after, I lived through consequences that are incredibly boring and incredibly instructive. I unfollowed the accounts that tell you to make men chase you. I told my therapist why I had wanted to put Adam on a pedestal, and then ask him to kneel. I started writing my boundaries down in a notebook, and reading them out loud to see if they were actual boundaries, or just a way to control a situation without admitting it. I texted Alana to apologize for ghosting on game night, because embarrassment is easier when you start small. I ran into Mia at the farmer's market and said, I'm sorry for the awkwardness, and she said, we're adults, and I believed her because she was buying beets, which is an adult vegetable. A month later, I saw Adam on the street with his sister, carrying a rolled-up rug and arguing about whether the color was clay or terracotta. He waved. I waved. He looked okay. The way people look when the world remembered their name and forgave them for not showing up perfectly. He had already won, really, the night he set his boundary and walked out without slamming anything. He wins every day he doesn't tell the story to a crowd in a way that makes me into a monster, or him into a martyr. He wins by letting me live with the ordinary consequences of my choices, and not making himself a character in my redemption. You want the practical part? The workplace side? Nobody got HR involved because there was no policy violation. I don't work at Adam's company. He and Zach aren't in a reporting line. Sleep with a coworker if you want, but don't be surprised when your life shrinks around the triangle you built. Especially if you tell your next partner, we're waiting, like it's a trophy. If Adam had wanted to, he could have told his manager everything. It probably would have resulted in awkward team assignments, not lawsuits. Instead, he did the thing grown men do when they're not auditioning for the internet. He rearranged his schedule and his social life without demanding everyone change the scenery for his pain. When my mother asked why Adam and I broke up, I told her the truth. She has a look she reserves for when I've become my father in miniature. Impulsive, secretive, too proud to be honest until pain forces me. She gave me that look. Then she poured tea and said, you can't make good men into paddles you used to beat your old self with. I still think about the night at the bar, the way Zach said my name, the way Adam's face did not crumble when he realized what was true. It is not the worst thing I've done. It is the meanest to someone who didn't deserve it. If I could redo anything, it wouldn't be the night with Zach so much as the morning after I met Adam at game night, when he and I stood in Alana's kitchen at midnight eating leftover pizza, and he asked if I wanted to split a lift. I would go back to that moment, look at his face and say, there's a weird coincidence I should tell you about now, because I want to build something that doesn't need scaffolding. Instead, I am telling you. I am writing this like a note to the version of me who thought special was leverage. It isn't. It's a responsibility. Don't use it to make a good man jump through hoops you didn't put in front of a stranger you forgot about 3 days later. Don't make patience a test. Don't confuse virtue with control. And, for the love of your future, don't let a coworker know more about your relationship than the man you're in it with. Adam will be fine. He already is. He'll date someone who likes that he fixes things and makes risotto and folds naps into a sundae like he's making a song. He'll go to happy hour and laugh at the forklift story and wave at Zach across the bar without needing to pretend the past didn't happen. He won't tell the story about me unless someone asks. And even then he'll make it short and true. He'll keep pitching at softball, and bringing the ice and closing the trunk at the end of the night. And me? I'm learning how to be the kind of person who says the awkward sentence before it explodes. I'm learning that "we're waiting" means nothing if it's built on a lie you stitched together out of fear. I'm learning that you don't get to hide forever behind the words special and boundary and principle, while you let someone prove something you didn't even demand of yourself. If you want a punchline, there isn't one. There's just this. A man who left kindly is braver than a woman who stayed quietly for the wrong reasons. He won by not making a speech. He won by not needing to be right loudly. He won by leaving my apartment the night I finally told him the truth without taking anything that wasn't his. He took his sneakers and his dignity and the risotto pan he'd bought on sale at Target. He left me the recipe on a post-it by the stove, because that is who he is. I make it sometimes. It still turns out creamy if you stir.